Welcome to the Heart Path Podcast. I'm your host, Yvonne Ellis. The Heart Path Podcast spotlights authors, changemakers, nature lovers, and creators of all kinds. Each of our podcasts aim to share interviews and stories of beauty, resilience, and inspiration for all. Thank you for listening to the Heart Path Podcast. This week's guest is CMarie Fuhrman. CMarie is an award-winning author, poet, and teacher whose work is deeply rooted in the Western landscape. She is the author of Salmon Weather, Writing from the Land of No Return, and the co-editor of Cascadia Field Guide, Art, Ecology, and Poetry, as well as Native Voices, Indigenous Poetry, Craft, and Conversations. CMarie is the Associate Director of Western Colorado University's Graduate Program in Creative Writing, founder of the Confluence Writing Community, and the Director of Elk River Writers Workshop. You can find CMarie and her work at CMarieFuhrman.com. Thank you so much for joining me today, CMarie. It's a pleasure to have you here. And I am so excited to hear about what you're up to. I'm wondering if we can start with an adventure that you took yourself on this summer. Can we talk about an adventure?
Oh, I love that. Yes. And thank you for inviting me. It's so good to be in community with you again and talking about things we both love a lot. Most recently, at the beginning of October, it was actually October 4th. We went to this place that's just kind of overlooked and nobody really goes to because it's detached from a lot of the national forests. We'd seen it on a map and it's out of our normal area. So we headed there and it was a series of narrow roads that go up because they're all logging roads, right? So we get to the top and we ran into Rocky and Ron, and they were two hunters up there that wanted to show us their whole hunting camp. And then they were ready to make burgers for it. They were really quite interesting humans, but we wanted to go walk up there just to see what might be ahead. And we hadn't looked at it too closely, but it was an old road. And so we started up and it was very rocky and rutted, and not a huge fan of walking trails or roads anymore, just because I feel like once you get on a trail or a road, you forget to look around. You're just looking for the trail or the road. Mm-hmm. And it was passing through a grazing lease. So there was a lot of cow crap all over, and there were some cows, and Apache, our dog, was a little uncertain and distracted by all of that. I was getting frustrated because it was just becoming a march, and it was, as Idaho is, uphill. And you couldn't see anything. It was very dense trees. And that's not a complaint. It's just that it started to feel like we're just walking down a road and not having any discoveries, which are important to me when I'm out on the land. And so we finally got to this place that opened up. And we're probably at this point 4.5 miles in, always keeping in mind that there's 4.5 miles to go back, right? And Caleb could tell I was frustrated. I was walking really fast. He's like, let's just turn around. You're just not into it. And I'm like, I'm not into it. But we kept going. And he's very good at dangling carrots. He's like, here's the thing. Right over that ridge is a chain of lakes. Then he drops a whopper where he's like, and the archaeologists told us that there used to be a Nez Perce camp up there. So there's quite a bit of lithic scatter and history with the Nimiku up there. So needless to say, it's getting darker and the clouds are getting lower. And we get there and we're in this fog that's moving through us. We're 6 to 6.5 miles in. We're on top of this saddle. It just dropped straight off. And the clouds were moving beneath us. So they would move and then a lake would appear and it would disappear. And it was freezing fog. So it would come bowling up out of this drainage And when it met the trees, it just coated them like they were those fake Christmas trees with walking on it. And so we ended up walking that whole ridgeline to the top. And indeed, we did find lithic scatter, chippings from obsidian and chert. But it was just so dramatic and beautiful. And it was as if only parts of the land were being shown to us through these holes in heaven. Because they would move and you could focus only for a little bit and you could see this emerald light below and then it would go away. And then something would open and you could see a patch of aspen, all yellow. Then it would go away. And we ended up staying up there until we don't go back now. We're going to be walking back in the dark. So we walked back, and on the way out, we saw a bear cub. We turned off the engine because we were driving the road out. And the bear cub would just stand and look at us and kept looking. And we just had this wonderful encounter of the unexpected in this place that is sort of disregarded because we let that, like you call it, heart path, that curiosity path guide us. Now that place just resides in this magical memory to me. My legs were super tired because it was rocky and we were moving pretty fast on the way back. But it just proves that sometimes you just have to keep going a little further.
Beautiful. I'm so glad you found the magic out there. And a bear cub. Woof.
Just magical. And to stand in the clouds and have clouds pass around you. Yeah. That feels so real compared to everything else that's happening in the world. The rest of it feels like noise. That was just truth.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you kept going. Speaking of being outside, can we talk a little bit about Zumwalt Prairie and what you're doing with Fish Trap?
Yeah. I think it was 2021, right after the pandemic, they reached out and they're like, hey, we do this thing called Outpost. That's on this 36,000 acre nature conservancy piece outside of Joseph, Oregon, outside of Enterprise Joseph area. It's really remote. Is that something you'd be interested in? I'm like, I could be interested in that very easily. It's a week out there and a cook comes and there are 3 buildings. So there's bathrooms and there's shelter for those who need it. It's not completely like rustic, but it was amazing. We're spending 24 hours together. So the students and I were able to go really deep on conversations and no one wanted to leave. And they reached out to the organizers, Mike and Shannon, and they're like, can CMarie come back next year? And I did, and it continued to happen, and we continued to build. And my friend Janet Holman comes out, who's a biologist and knows that area so well. So she gives these eco walks where she can talk about each plant and the beings that they see. And we've even had Nez Perce elders come out and tell the story of Mimipu on the land. So about 3 years in, they said, I think we're just going to call it Outpost with CMarie on the Zoom wall. And could you come back every year? What an honor to do that. So every year I do. And the tricky part, and you know this is a teacher, is that when you have students come back, you have to create a whole new curriculum. So that's really pushed me to create a new experience every year for the students. It's been incredible. And it usually sells out in the first week when it opens. And we have a fantastic time out there. We've had 90-degree weather. And one morning we had 17 degrees in the morning. The beauty is there's zero connection. I don't allow cell phones, so you can't even have it out for the camera. We just go no technology. It's all paper and pen. And I think part of the transformative experience is that folks are connecting with the land again. They're sleeping on the land. We're walking on it. We're sitting with it. We do some service. We're getting to know all the beings on the land. And people don't have to ding with buzzes and emails and to-do lists. I think that's the transformative part of it. And this year, we talked about how we just seem to get started and then have to leave each other. And that's always the hardest part, the saying goodbye. So this year, I'm offering 8 months afterwards to start to build a cohort that can workshop together and learn how to do that and trust each other and be good workshoppers. So we're going to go beyond the prairie this year, but it's incredible. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah. Can we talk a little bit about your work at Western Colorado University?
Yeah. Yeah. I reached out to Laura Pritchett and said, can you tell me more about this low residency nature writing? And I said, I've been a place where I'm looking for teaching opportunities. One thing led to another. So I started out teaching nature writing and poetry. And then the position, the director opened. So I went there, and then I saw that maybe there was a need in admin for help running the residency. At the time, our director, Tyson, was handling it all. One thing led to another, and now I'm the associate director, which means I do a lot more admin work than I used to do. But it also means that I get to work with our marketing team. I get to work with every one of our students teaching the common read. I still teach in poetry and nature writing. I still give master classes. But I get to do a lot more now with the university and reach into a lot more places to introduce our program. Do you want me to tell you a little bit more about the program?
I'd love to.
We have 5 concentrations. We have publishing and poetry, screenwriting, genre fiction, and nature writing. And all of those, you can get an MA or an MFA in 2 years and 3 summers, or 1 year and 2 summers. Concentrations that are unique. Publishing is unique to get a master's in. There's only, I think, one other low residency nature writing program. There's other full residency programs, but only one other low residency. There's a lot of blending between nature writing and poetry. And we have genre fiction, which is pretty awesome. Not a lot of programs like that in the country. And what's happened from that is now I read poesy, genre, fantasy, romances quite often, thanks to our director who pointed me in the direction of these lovely mind escapes. And we have screenwriting. So all of that, all remote, all from home for our students until we come together in Gunnison. And I think the best part of it, and the part I like, is that it has live virtual classes. When I first looked into the MFA, I started with the packet program, and I just felt like I was alone riding into the void. And with our program, there's community from day one. We come together, we're in live one-on-one mentorship. It just feels, it would be so lonely any other way. But we connect quite often via Zoom during the regular semesters and then in person. Just last week, I was with alum and faculty and current students in Fort Collins. So we find these ways to connect. When it's over, those friendships never end. My biggest fear was everybody would scatter. But what seemed to happen at the end of class, and this is true for all of our directors, is everybody comes closer together. Drive to visit one another. With a brick and mortar program, you go back to your lives, their jobs, or whatever. But here, we still stay in touch. That's my favorite part. Also, that we've been called an island of unicorns. That also delights me to no end.
An island of unicorns. Oh, yeah, that's perfect. Well, I have to say that you were one of my favorite teachers in the GPCW, and you taught me so much that I'm still using today. And I can't thank you enough for everything.
No, thank you. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate that. It's often, I think, am I doing anything? Am I helping? I'm often questioning that, and I'm often revisiting how I teach. It matters a lot to me. The time and money that students put in. Poetry is hard to teach. Writing is hard to teach. And I have to scrape this very bottom of my heart to find the right thing to say that I can pass on some of that magic that I'm still myself trying to collect, right? I'm still trying to be a better poet. I think I always will be, but I appreciate you saying that. I'm glad that we connected, and I'm glad it's been helpful, and I'm glad you're getting you more than well.
Thank you for everything. I feel so lucky that I took 3 courses with you and was able to learn so much from you over time. And none of them were the same. They were all so different. And so you really do have a ability to teach anyone, anytime, anywhere. And I am so grateful for that gift of yours. So thank you, CMarie, for that.
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. I taught in the rain this weekend in Boise. So I'm hoping that rings true for 30 individuals who are shivering a little bit, but they didn't leave. We can't take it lightly. I don't take it lightly.
Yeah.
It's such an important job, and to get it right matters so much to me, because there has never been a time in my life where words are more important than people being able to speak their words and be heard are more important. And for people to be able to feel that joy of creating and feel it sing within them.
Can we take that a little further and hear about your work with voice and how you empower others to use their voice in writing?
Yeah. And I want to give a nod to Richard Hugo from Sugaring Town, which we read together. And he has this rant about MFA programs. And in that rant, he's like, I don't want people to sound like me. I want to give the opportunity for people, and I'm paraphrasing here, to find their own voices. And so when I started thinking about who I was as a teacher and what really mattered to me in my MFA program, it was, how do I make sure I'm offering you what you need to be the best at lawn? And how am I offering other students the opportunity to be their best, giving them the same set of tools, but knowing that each one of them needs to use it differently to amplify who they are, instead of who the market, who the culture, or who I even think that they need to be. And recognizing that their poetry is going to be the strongest when it truly comes from them and is a reflection of who they are, of their heart, of their mind, their thoughts and experiences. So that voice aspect has come to matter a lot to me, making sure that that's never lost within the student. Because then otherwise it feels like a mask. I mean, we put on a certain persona when we write, but that can deepen and elevate our voice or illuminate our voice, not become someone else's or something that's just, I think it would feel terrible to write a piece in a voice you thought you should have and have it get accepted and people liked it. And maybe no one ever knew that it didn't really come from the center of you. But when you get to write your authentic voice and someone goes, I love this, and they publish it or they just love it, you feel like they love me, really. It's not, I don't have Botox or it's not colored hair. It's the real me is who they love. And that is what I remind myself when I'm working with students, to make sure that we're not following some script handed down to us through academia or anywhere else says we should write one way or a certain thing. That everybody needs to find that on their own. That's kind of like your heart path. It's like the voice path.
Yeah. Thank you. I would love to know more about your book club coming up.
Thank you. I'm excited about this. I wanted to start a place virtually that brought together people that had similar interests and combined literature and advocacy in the environment. I recently did a free class on how to write letters to editor and op-eds and stuff, which was amazing, and had a lot of students there. And then I thought of what's some way we could come together as a community. We did a book club where we meet maybe once a month for 90 minutes and talk about the book, and I can offer prompts so we could, build in writing into that. But then also have someone come be an expert in that field. And maybe it's not expert in the way we think expert, because you know me well enough to know that I think it takes your whole life to make you a writer. It's not like I'm a writer on Fridays and on Mondays I volunteer at the thrift store. When I'm at the thrift store, I'm gathering writing stuff. And when I'm writing, I'm thinking of the thrift store quite a bit. So I also want to bring in people who we maybe wouldn't think of, like professional flight tyers, when we're talking about rivers, or other people that help us fully see a river or a drainage, or writing about it in a way that we maybe haven't considered before, and having those conversations too. So I want to do 12 months reading rivers and looking at nonfiction, fiction, poetry, and maybe some essays during that 12 months, and ending with a book I am so in love with that I have within hands reach right now, which is A River Alive by Robert Barlin, in which he advocates for sentience, to give rivers rights as a sentient being. Wow. So, yeah, I thought it would just be a great place to come together and talk about something that folks are passionate about. We'll see. I need to get going on it because the end of the year is coming.
So if people are interested in joining you, how can they find this book club?
If you go to my website, CMarieFuhrman.com, under workshops tab, it'll take you right to my Teachable website. And there'll be some more classes on advocacy and writing advocacy, making public comments, which is the little bit more nebulous one, and how to do that. And I'm going to do a video of the first class I taught so people can just access that for free. And have, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. So, do you want to talk a little bit about Elk River Writers Workshop and what you're up to with them?
Absolutely. So speaking of things coming together in community, which started for me 2015-ish, when I went there as a student and became friends with one of my idols, which is Doug Peacock, and also his wonderful wife, Andrea, who had become a very dear friend of mine. At the time, Andrea and another woman were running the workshop. And I went and I got to meet Bill Kittredge and study with Bill Kittredge and Rick Bass and Doug Peacock. It was just incredible. And we stayed friends. And their plan was to do it every 2 years, so 2015, 17, 19, and so on. And 2017 didn't take. They didn't get enough students. They had to cancel. I was still in my MFA program, ready to go. They canceled it. 2019, I graduated, but they had asked me if I would direct it, and they were going to try to resuscitate it for 2020. Well, we know what happened in that era. And so I think we still had a workshop that fall, but it was outside in 2020. And then every year since then, it's been happening. And I'm really fortunate in that they've trusted me to guide the creative direction of the workshop. Andrea does the heavy lifting of all the program management, and Mark does a lot of our graphics, and both of them come and have the bookstore. And Stephen, who joined us about 3 years ago, has also lent a hand. But they let me kind of steer where it's going. And more, I've tried to make it with a very diverse faculty, diverse in a lot of different ways, but diverse in making sure that we're representing literature that isn't always represented in some of the workshops and conferences out there. We base it on environmental writing and climate conversations and place-based writing. So students that come there tend to have those same interests. Last year, I decided to have it be all native. And it was interesting how it was met with a lot of, oh my God, that's a really radical idea, which felt sad to me, because why would it be radical to have all native instructors in the West? But it is in our culture. And it got a ton of wonderful press from folks, but it didn't take off the way I hoped. But it still was amazing. And I think what we learned from it, and we've always tended to think small for Upriver. We want a tight community, close-knit, We share all of our meals. We don't want to get so big that we run into someone. We're like, oh, you're here too for this? How come I've never seen you? So this year we used to have 5 faculty. We've learned that 4 is an even sweeter spot for us. We also learned that folks want to go in the park, Yellowstone National Park, because it's right on the edge of Yellowstone and Prairie, Montana. And on top of that, we just didn't want to compete with our friends anymore. Fort Townsend Writers Conference is the week before. Fish Trap is the month before. There's so much going on in the summer. Also, our students pointed out to us that it's really hard for them to get daycare in the summer. That traveling to Montana is really expensive in the summer. And that was pushing the costs up, which I think affected the program as well. So we moved it to October 18th to the 23rd of 2026. Our students also said, we loved having so many Native faculty. We are learning so much from them. And so we invited 3 Native faculty, Chris Latre, Deborah Miranda, and the incredible Diane Wilson, who wrote Seakeeper. And Jamie Ford is joining us again as well, because this has been a beloved faculty each time. Each class will get to go to Yellowstone with a biologist, the guide, and their faculty, and do some writing and learning and walking in the park with an ecological tour. And then we just thought, sweater weather and writing, let us become the cozy workshop, shall we? Mugs of hot liquids and maybe a little snowfall, but certainly turning aspen and sandhill crane migrations. We feel really good about it. So taking a turn for another 10 years of Elk River to see where it's going to go next, and doing so in a way that feels even more cozy and more community than it has before.
That sounds amazing. Wow.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. It sounds really good.
Thank you. You've been, so I know that that's a bit of a contrast for you to see where it's been and where it's going, but it just feels right to me. In a world where everything's getting bigger, it feels right to get a little bit smaller and pull community in a little bit closer. And sweaters and lattes, pumpkin bread.
And I heard a rumor that you make homemade cookies. Is this true?
I do deliver warm cookies to every class.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's my way of just checking in and making sure everybody's doing okay and making eye contact with everyone and letting them know that we love them. Mm-hmm. We want them to be writers in the world and want them to feel nourished. And you may not get that at home, but you're going to get it with us, and we're going to spoil you while you're there.
And as a workshop participant and alum, I know this for a fact. And I was so lucky to learn from J. Drew Lanham while I was there and be a part of this magic. And I just can't thank you enough for all the work you do with Elk River.
Thank you. Thanks for bringing Drew into this space with us. What an incredible community builder, kind human being, giving human being, and beautiful writer, poet. Everything that Drew does seems to have a little magic in it and kindness. It's pretty incredible. Drew and I once had to share a loft in one of the cabins because they had a little bit of a snafu with the room. I had Cisco with me, and he's my old man dog. It was, I think, the last full year of his life. And so Drew and I had our beds in separate areas of this loft, and it became bedtime. And Cisco looked at me and then looked at Drew and then went over and curled up with Drew all night, basically spooning with Drew all night. And I'm like, all right. He just has that attraction that's so beautiful. And Cisco saw it right away. So poor Drew, I think, only got a quarter of his bed because Cisco had severe snuggle on him.
That's so sweet. Oh, so are you ready to share a little something from your new book, Salmon Weather?
Yes, I am.
Congratulations on this book. I know that it's sold out at AWP and a lot of people are reading it. I know that you've edited a lot of popular books. For instance, Cascadia Field Guide is just blown up. And so it's so nice to see your own writing in the world.
You. It felt really scary. I love community and I love doing things with others, whether it's building a workshop like Upriver or working in a classroom or doing Cascadia or Native Voices. So it was like, I'm stepping out on my own. I don't get to bring someone along. But what I realized, and I think this is true for writers and for writing, is that the book needed to come out. And it came out at a time when land managers, when biologists and Forest Service employees were perhaps feeling the lowest morale, experiencing the lowest morale they've ever experienced in their jobs, feeling just unwanted and unappreciated. And out comes Salmon Weather, that's a celebration of Forest Service employees, of collaborations of Native people. And someone asked me the other day, why do you think so many people are turned to nature writing? And I said, I think it's because the earth is calling to have people speak for nature and with nature and co-create with nature, because there are some changes to make, you know. But I was delighted that it came out. And when I did my reading here in McCall, there was a lot of forest here. And some of them were retired, some of them were current. But 2 retired Forest Service sat right up front. And I read a piece, not the one I'm going to share today, but I read a piece about a collaboration on the South Fork. It's my place that I feel the most mean. And they were crying. These 2 retired men, they're like, that was our life work and somebody saw it. And man, that was enough. That was all I would ever need to know that our writing can do so much more than we'll ever know. Okay. The piece that I'm going to share is not particularly happy, but it's fitting because it's a hunting piece. And it's important because I think sometimes we forget that we can advocate for nature. We can be a conservationist. We can love the very thing that we hunt. And we can sit in the complexity of 2 truths. And I do quite often when I'm hunting and otherwise. So Caleb and I had gotten this late cow tag, special permit, a draw. And Caleb and I are out mid-December. And we'd been looking for elk all day and we'd seen wolf tracks. We knew we were about to get the big storm of the season, the first big storm of the season, which here can mean feet of snow, especially in the backcountry. And it would be my last chance. And we'd been out all afternoon. We'd started in the morning with some wolf hunters that passed us on the trail who had no success. And we'd finally kind of given up. We were just like, you know what? Let's just enjoy being out here. So I had a cow tag. And so we ended up sneaking up on some poles and we're laying right above them. They have no idea we're there. And we're just getting to blast these huge poles. And then what often happens, like the story I started with, is we see the trail going around this corner and we're like, let's just go this extra 20 minutes just to look around the corner. So we did. We had convinced ourselves we would see no elk that day. They'd be hunkered down in the trees preparing for the coming storm. And there had been the wolf hunters and there were the wolves. So Caleb slung the unloaded rifle over his shoulder and we walked as if it were a summer trail. But there were elk. And we'd not have known if we had not stopped for lunch and started blasting the slope below us and seen the bulls. Carefree, their dangerous season over. One pair lying butt to butt, arrogant in their safety. More were scattered on the ridges and precipices below. The snow had not yet started, and the trail went further. And we are those people who always want to see what is around the next corner. And so we walked on. And around the corners where we found ourselves, unprepared, with a cow elk. Caleb chambered a bullet, handing me the gun, saying nothing as I walked, then crawled down the trail. The elk still. Alone now, I take a shallow breath and press my cheek to the stock, moving my eye close to the scope, a scope I looked 3 years ago to kill a coyote who was caught in a trap and his leg was shattered. I had a pistol, but I needed distance. That afternoon, it was the hood of my pickup that balanced the rifle. I couldn't bear the suffering. the cries, the way the animal leapt over and over again, as if by some miracle it would finally be free. We try so hard to get away from pain. The report of the 30-06 is so loud. I wanted it to be louder. I screamed when Buster took his last breath, my dog. I screamed again when I felt Katie, my other dog's body go limp. The rifle's report would echo across the ridgeline and be gone. Mine would echo throughout time and memory. The sound was the result of a small combustion, a release. Boom. Okay, I said when the EMT said Randy, my husband, was dead. Okay, I texted my sister. When Caleb tells the story of the cow the following spring to our friends who have come to visit, he starts crying. I could tell she was scared, he said. She kept pushing the safety on and on. Her hands were shaking. We were sharing supper then, elk steaks. I had come to like telling the story of the meat we served, the meat we have killed. I sometimes tell the story of Caleb standing at the sink with a 3-toed salamander in his hands. An exterminator had been called to kill the ants that had burrowed into our home. The poison had found all the living things, including the salamander that lived beneath the plywood that protects our windows from shattering under the pressure of snow when it gets deep. He was holding the creature so gently in his big hands, the same way he holds the story of the cow elk. The stream of water from the faucet was warm, and he was running a fingertip up and down the length of its body, which he then returned to safety. I slide the safety off. The pack Caleb used to carry the quarters of the buck out of the South Fork was before me. I guide the barrel through the crossbars, and I feel the weight lifted. I press the stock against my shoulder, my cheekbone against the stock, my left eye closed, my right one seeks the place on the animal that will promise instant death. Above the shoulder, below the neck, I aim the heart.
Woo! That is really powerful. I love that you don't fit in a box and that you share your voice, you promote community, you support writers, and I love who you are as an individual. Thank you for existing on this earth and sharing this time with me today.
Thank you, thank you. It's been such a pleasure being in your world, and we'll always hold dear our time together following green lights and look forward to becoming old writers together.
Mm-hmm.
Very old.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And I look forward to the day when I'm interviewing you about your book, which I know is coming. And that we color coordinated, which is really nice to me.